Welcome back to ADNAC Accent Coaching. My name's Allison. Body awareness, speech awareness. So let's talk about the body. Speech is in the body. Speech is executed through physical movements in the body, but all the motor planning for our whole entire body's processes happen in the brain and spinal cord. So the spinal cord is the brainstem, kind of the part of the brain from the brainstem to the coccyx, the sacrum, essentially. Let me start over. So we're going to talk about body awareness, and the brain is responsible for all of the body's movements. The brain and the spinal cord are responsible for all of the body's movements. Motor planning, it's called. But speech is executed in the body. Speech is in the body. When we speak out loud, we're using our body to make sounds. And if we change movements in our body, it can change the sounds. So today we're just going to develop some body awareness around speech so that you can control your speech better. Because imagine if I told you to flex your kidney. You might be like, how do I even know how to do that? You could flex your bicep, but could you flex your kidney? Do you even know where it is? Can you feel it? Can you control it? So let's learn how our speech organs work and feel where they are so that we can learn to control them. So you can learn to control all of your speech organs just simply by learning and paying attention. Some people call this like biofeedback. Learning, feeling your body's own processes of breath, heart rate, perspiration, just awareness of your body's processes, the nervous system processes that happen, is what you need for body awareness. So let's first talk about voicing. So when we're talking about speech, we have, in English at least, we have voiceless sounds and voiced sounds. Often these sounds are paired and we have one voiceless, one voiced, like p and b, t and d, k and g. So when we're going to turn on our voice, how to feel if we're doing that is you feel right in the throat here. For some people, it's where your thyroid prominence or your Adam's apple is. So we feel here and we go, mm, 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 mm. You should be able to feel like a cell phone almost, like zzz, 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 zzz. So this vibration here is the activation of our vocal fold muscles. So we have these muscles in our throat, in our airway. Every time we breathe, every time we speak, air intake, exhalation, it's always going past these vocal folds in our throat. Now, only when we are activating them and vibrating them will voice come out. So if we took voice away from speech, it would sound like whispering. If I'm not activating my vocal folds whatsoever, it comes out as a whisper. So actually it's still understandable. It's just really quiet. So anytime we shape the air coming out from our lungs into the world, we're manipulating that air in order to control and change the sounds. And the sounds go through the airwaves and then land on our listener's ear, and then they have to process that. They have to make sense of that. So your listener has expectations, and if you have an accent, you can learn to kind of meet those expectations with your accent. So voicing is vibration felt at the throat. So let's go through voiced and voiceless sounds, right? These are fricatives, they're ongoing, and it's easier to do them than stop sounds. So let's go v, like V. V, now F. V, v. Try it with S and Z. Z, z, z. And let's try it with sh and zh. Sh, zh, sh, zh. And finally, let's do the TH. So let's do v, v. Unless I'm missing some, those are the fricatives that we use in English, voiced and voiceless. So anytime you want to figure out if you're flexing your vocal folds, activating your vocal folds, just feel there for the vibration. So now if you know how to do this, now you know how to control your vocal folds. Now you know how to flex your kidney. Not really, but okay. Now what else is part of our body awareness that can teach us about speech? I'm going to use this little piece of tissue paper to demonstrate. In English, we have a two-way contrast between Voiceless, aspirated, stop consonants with voiced, unaspirated stop consonants. B, D, G. So the aspirated voiceless consonants require a puff of air at the beginning. French doesn't do this. Spanish doesn't do this. There's a whole bunch of languages that don't use aspiration. There's languages that do use it, but in a different way, like Hindi. So in English, this aspiration is going to be at the start of any word with a voiceless stop consonant or at the start of any stressed syllable with a voiceless stop consonant. So, t, d. So let's use pie, buy, and spy. So pie and buy differ. Pie is a voiceless unaspirated consonant. P. Buy is with a voiced unaspirated. So pie, buy, 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 pie, 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 pie. You can experiment with how soft you can make it. Pie, pie. It doesn't need to be super intense like pie, but you don't want to go back into French and be like Paul, Paul. We want to talk about Paul, 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 not Paul, Paul. So if we say pie and buy, what happens if we put an S in front of the P in pie? Well, it kind of sounds like a B. Pie, spy, spy. The P in spy doesn't have any aspiration because the S takes it away. Spy, pie. Does that make sense? So you can kind of think of the P in spy as kind of sounding like a B. If you need to do that, if you're stuck doing this, spy, spy, and you can't figure out how to do it correctly, which is spy, try saying buy and then put an S in front of it like this. Buy, spy, spy. So that's a little trick. Let's talk about T and D. T, t, d, tie, dye, tie-dye, tie, dye. Okay, let's put an S in front of the T. It's going to steal the aspiration. Tie, sty, sty, dye, sty, tie. Make sense now? Let's do it with K and G. They're further back, so there's a lot less aspiration. They're kind of back here. So let's say Kim, Gim, Kim, Gim, Skim, Gim, Skim, Kim. So the K in skim is pretty much kind of like a G sound because it doesn't have aspiration. So if you don't want to say spin and stim and skin, and you want to say spin, stim, and skim, you have to practice not using aspiration after the S. What's another one? Oh, you don't have to use this, by the way. You could use like a receipt, toilet paper, tissue, or you could use your fingertips just to feel the air. So fingertips are good for that. One more thing I kind of want to share with you. So if you're working on your R sound, there's two options. You could do the mountain R, which is a bunched tongue R, and that's where the middle of your tongue bunches up like a mountain and creates this space here where an R happens. You also need to flare your lips. For any type of R, you're going to do a bit of a flared lip for them. It's not rounded, it's flared. You see that? So if we're gonna try and find the R sound, you can bunch your tongue up like that and say And if you're doing a different type of R, for instance, if you can do this with your tongue, then you'll probably do this type of R. So you're gonna curl your tongue ever so slightly, not up like that into a retroflex R, which is like murder. You want it just curled like that so that there's space between the roof of the mouth and the tongue to create the R sound. It's just like what's happening in here. There's a little bit of a passage here, and that's where the R sound is created. So you could do it with this tongue movement, or you could do it with this tongue movement. You're not going to do that, though. That's a retroflex R. That's from Hindi, for example. So if you can do this, you're going to do this type of R. And so this trick is only for this type of R. For bunched R, you don't need this. So for curled R, I'm taking a simple flossing tool. I don't actually recommend you floss with these because they don't actually do a good job. and it's like hugely wasteful. But it can be a good tool to kind of find where your tongue is. There's actually a better flosser out there. It's shaped kind of like a slingshot and it has floss here. And you would put that in your mouth and then pull on the floss with your tongue tip like this. So if you can find the slingshot ones, they have a lot thinner. The shape is different, and there's a thinner thing here, so it's easier to use. But if you only have this kind, or you can only find this kind, cut the floss. First of all, we don't need the floss. We're just going to use this part of the tool to curl our tongue. It's just kind of like feeling where our tongue is in space. Let's be aware of the sound. Let's practice the shape. So we're going to put this in the mouth and then curl the tongue up like this. And now, if you take it out while leaving your mouth in that position, that'll be a good R shape. So, er, er. You just have to flare your lips. Er. So, when we start syllables with R's, it's like ruh. And when we end syllables with R's, it's like or, ear, air, ire. So, ending R's might not be as flared as beginning R's, like ruh, versus air, or, ear. Do you see how the flaring is really minimal at the end? So those are some tools you can use to get in touch with your body and feel your speech. And one more tip I want to give, this is not speech related, but this is for stress. So if you're stressed, you should take some deep breathing exercises. There's plenty out there on the internet from experts more knowledgeable than I am on this. But if you can get in touch with your own heart rate and you can breathe in a controlled manner, you can slow down your own heart rate. So if you're stressed out, I want you to do this with me, okay? So we're just going to control our heart rate by breathing slowly for a couple of minutes. So you can get in touch with that. And if you can feel it, if you can check in, if it's quiet, you might be able to tell that your heart rate has slowed down a bit. So having a fast heart rate makes us talk faster. And that makes our listener feel like we don't care very much about them. If we talk too fast to try and get everything else out before the air runs out, my mom always does that. She's like, what are you talking about? She's kind of running out of air at the end. You can slow your speech down. Take a breath beforehand. Slow your speech down. Don't run out of air. And then don't rush to the end of the sentence. And you will give your listener more space to make sense of your speech. All right. That is enough for now. I'll talk to you next time. Thanks for tuning in.